So, vampire bat debate, to kill or not to kill. Chris Kroll, Tribune Newspapers, Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune. Cattleman Francisco Oliva was on a roundup of vampire bats after a swarm of the blood slurping creatures dive bombed his herd and drank their fill one recent night. He corralled several dozen of them in special contraptions that look like giant badminton nets. He put each bat in a cage and then applied a poison called vampirin to their backs with a brush before releasing them. Back in the bat roost, the animals would be groomed by about 20 other bats, causing their deaths. Or so Oliva hoped. We have to look for answers because this little animal is very stubborn, he said, days after the capture. Surveying his 300 head herd, most of them bearing bat fang markings and red stains from the nightly bloodletting. Oliva said he would exterminate every bat if he could. You keep the good and get rid of the bad, said the rancher, philosophic, but wearied from the nocturnal attacks that have reached Transylvanian proportions of late. And these little beasts are terrible. More than 100 miles away on an island research station in the middle of the Panama Canal, Stefan Close begged to differ. He not only stuck up for Desmodus rotundus, the scientific name for the most common vampire bat, but described the animals as boons to humanity. Bat based research led to the development of sonar and anticoagulant medicines that prevent heart attacks, he pointed out, and scientists are only beginning to understand the creatures. I certainly defend vampire bats' right to a place in the ecosystem, said Close, a young German zoologist who does field work at the Barrow, Colorado Tropical Scientific Center, run by the Smithsonian Institute. People's irrational reaction to vampires, he said, reflects our primal fear of being someone else's food object. Sweet and peaceful sight. Close also confessed a fondness for the creatures. The scientist said feeding time, when the bats accept bits of banana from his hand, is a really sweet and peaceful sight. It always reminds me of how close these animals are to us and how incredibly intelligent they are. Certainly more exotic and wilder than my neighbor's dog, but no less smart or cuddly. Few animals inspire the repugnance and fascination of vampire bats, and perhaps nowhere are opinions more divided than in Panama. With 120 bat species, bats are found globally except in Antarctica, but thrive in the tropical rainforests that cover much of Panama because of plenitude of animal and plant foods, abundant shelter, and the lack of seasons to inhibit regeneration. In a tropical environment's biodiversity, bats have more niches to exploit, Close said. On one side of the debate over the creatures are farmers such as Oliva, who are suffering from an escalating plague. And on the other are scientists who are bats, other are scientists who use bats, they are not bats, who use bats and the scientific breakthroughs they have inspired to promote biodiversity. Bats have developed a radar system that can distinguish the tiniest insect in the middle of dense brush in the dead of night, said Todd Capson, a Smithsonian staff scientist who tracks the development of technology derived from tropical flora and fauna. It's inconceivable. There isn't something more to learn from that. But bat benefits are a tough sell here. Sabin Speen, another German researcher who recently did field work in Panama, said by telephone from the German city of Ulm that her efforts to explain the nice things about bats to Panamanians, such as insect control and seed and pollen dispersion, came to naught. The response I got was always, the only good bat is a dead bat, Sven said. Rancher Oliva can be forgiven for feeling antagonistic. Here in the remote, anti nostalgic. um, antagonistic. Here in the remote and hilly southwest corner of Panama, he and other cattlemen wage a continual battle against a variety of livestock pets such as coyotes, crocodiles, ticks, worms, and a host of tropical diseases. But he has been driven to the edge of desperation by the increasing bat attacks. Vampire bats have always been present in Panama, and their attacks have ebbed and flowed. But now the bat cycles have become more frequent, said Argis Barrios, president of Panama's National Cattlemen's Association. Scientists theorize that the increased attacks on livestock are due to timber cutting that has flushed bats out of food rich forests and to the growth here in Tennessee of cattle herds, a ready made and usually stationary food supply for bats. The problem is a man made one, Sven said. Farmer loses 10 calves. During the month of April, Oliva said he lost 10 calves to anemia caused by successive bloodlettings. He and other cattlemen bemoan the scarcity of bat catching nets, which are strictly controlled by the Panamanian government to prevent their use to capture endangered birds. Non-fire, non-fire vampire bats make up the majority of the 1,100 known bat species. They are the only three blood-sucking. There are only three blood-sucking or vampire species of bats. Oliva said adult vampire bats, which have a wingspan of 8 inches, swoop down by the hundreds over his herd, land on the ground, and then jump on the animal's legs, underbellies, or faces to bite them. A bat's saliva contains an anticoagulant that makes blood flow freely, and the bat laps up the blood. While sympathizing with the cattlemen, Close says further study of bats might yield more technological breakthroughs. Who would have thought reef sponges could lead to anti cancer drugs? That the scales of butterfly wings could help bring about better kinds of paint? But they are studied for it, Close said. In fact, very little of what we have invented has been made from scratch. Nature usually provides the template. Vampires could hold the key to a problem we want to solve, like AIDS or cancer. But if you destroy them, they are lost for eternity. I bet